So I've never made a YouTube video before, and I'm actually not that knowledgeable about music. So I feel pretty confident in talking shit about one of the world's most successful and ravenously beloved musical acts. Seriously though, please stay. I like to think that the shit I talk is of a slightly higher caliber than normal shit. A little softer, a little warmer, more well-spoken. The metaphor ends wherever you want. Anyway, popular virtual band Gorillaz recently debuted new music for the first time in 8 years, and not just one single, but 4 full songs. Now, as I said before, the Gorillaz are a pretty popular band, so breaking the silence with anything was guaranteed to be met with unabashed praise. Not only from the fans, but they're also kind of a critical darling, and every single song has a mainstreamly hipster featured artist, so it's basically Pitchfork's wet dream. And this isn't just some rando on the internet talking. I know firsthand just how fanatical Gorillaz fans are, because I am one. I am not exaggerating at all when I say I've listened to every scrap of audio they have commercially released. Hell, I've listened to every scrap of audio they've commercially released at the same time. So it pains me to say this, but the new tracks suck. All 4 of them suck. Some suck far less than others, but I wouldn't go so far as to say that any of the tracks don't suck. Okay, hear me out. I'm gonna go through each track one at a time. First up is Saturnz Barz. Try typing that with autocorrect enabled. This one's technically the lead single. It's got the music video and the obligatory 360-degree experience. Now I've heard a lot of things about it. One of the big things I keep hearing about it is how strange of a choice it is as a single. Are you kidding me? This is the most radio-friendly, safest bet they could have possibly picked for a single. It's that weird sort of trap soul type sound pioneered by Future and Drake kinda, and it's got that super hip auto-tune to hell mumble rap that's supposed to sound all cerebral, but just ends up being completely unintelligible. Now, to be fair, he's technically speaking a different language, so Popcan's got a better excuse to be unintelligible than Future, who's speaking with marbles in his mouth or something, but it's not exactly cutting the bleeding edge of the musical zeitgeist, is what I'm saying. Not only that, but people are saying it's a weird song for the Gorillaz to make outright. Well, that's true, just not in a good way. Gorillaz are supposed to be experimental, and this is experimental in the same way that every other experimental track sounds experimental. This isn't a scientist testing string theory. This is a scientist still checking up on how that whole gravity thing works. This track is super middle of the road, but other than that, it's not that bad. It's definitely the most catchy. It's the only one I can actually remember how it goes after listening to it. Really, it just comes down to this style not being my thing. And that's okay, Gorillaz have always been about switching up genre, even song to song. No one track can define the tone of a Gorillaz album. So luckily there's 3 more. So next up we have... Shit. I forgot what it was called. Man, I just had it. It was another space word. I even wrote it down. Where is it? Oh, this is so unprofessional. Ah, here it is. Let's see. Andromeda. Right, because it's about... Well, let's check the lyrics. Yeah. Right. Well, that doesn't matter. Dare off of Demon Days had a weird unrelated name that they just name-checked in the otherwise nonsensical lyrics, and that song was awesome. It's a dance song. The lyrics aren't important. It's about the musical pulse, and that's where the songs differ. Dare was memorable, while Andromeda was just lackluster. That's really the problem with all of these tracks. They're not bad, they just feel unfinished. They feel like B-sides. Actually, I can't even say that, because Gorillaz is known for still having amazingly polished B-sides that are so good, they usually release a companion album of just the B-sides, but that's the problem here. It feels like they skipped the regular album and went straight to the B-sides. This feels like the track that was cut off of Demon Days to make room for Dare. In fact, these all feel like tracks that didn't make it onto Demon Days. But enough about Demon Days, the song is forgettable and pointless. They could have not released it now and just let it stay a nondescript album track, and nothing would have been lost, really. And apparently Drum is on this one? I don't know where. Which is a shame. Drum style is one of the most individualistic styles in rap, which just makes the track's blandness even worse. Whatever, though. It's not worth getting mad over, considering I'm going to forget the track as soon as I stop talking about it. Like Saturnz Barz, it's hard to call it a bad song, it's just not a good song. No. The bad song is next up. Ascension. Super pretentious title. This one's got Vince Staples on it. I think I've heard of him. Isn't he kinda like Danny Brown? And I love Danny Brown. So this one's just straight up rap. Like, honestly, it really could be Vince featuring Gorillaz. Rap is rhythm and poetry. The beat's alright. There's nothing about it that makes it unmistakably Gorillaz, but that's alright as long as it's alright. And it is. Alright. Rap really lives or dies based on the merit of its lyrics. So let's look at the words. Okay, so the intro is pretty nice in a sort of wryly apocalyptic way, but with some typical rap braggadocio to add flair. Comparing himself to God, but also saying we've lost God. Telling us to play his music loud, but to do it because that's all we have left. Juxtaposition is a powerful tool when wielded with nuance. Pretty good intro, still not quite sure what it has to do with ascension though. Doesn't really sound like anyone's ascending anything yet. Next up is the chorus type thing. Maybe that'll tie it all together. What's supposed to be like the thesis line for the song? Oh no. Oh no. This is a bad line. Who wrote this? Did Vince write this line or did Damien? Because this was just ill-advised. It was going so well, and then this. It was like a nice little float down a gentle stream, and then you're just hit with a tidal wave with no warning, and the tidal wave is made of piss. It's not just the line, though. It's the lack of context and the immediacy with which it's presented. I don't know if they thought they were being subversive, but it just doesn't work. There's a complete lack of subtlety that spoils the whole thing. Now, is this line a song ruiner? I guess not on its own. The fact that it's just so early sets a sour tone for the rest of the song, which sadly seems like it was just a few drafts away from being pretty decent. As it is now, it sounds like a sort of precocious 16-year-old wrote it, except for a weirdly poignant end that I wouldn't be surprised if it was written at a different time than the rest of the song. That part is much better, but feels so disjointed it's almost blindsiding, and it's ultimately not enough to save the track in my opinion. Plus the title is so pretentious. This is easily the worst track of the four, and the only one I would go so far as to call a bad song. And from the bad to the best, lastly we got the Power. This one's my favorite of the four, but damn is it cheesy. That's okay, you need a little cheesy on every album. A lot of artists forget that and put out these tough albums to get through that just go on and on with the heaviness. So cheesy is fine, but I can't help but feel it's a little too cheesy, especially for Gorillaz. It's also clearly motivated by the current political climate. Not quite as much as Hallelujah Money, but still not exactly veiled either. Now let me talk a bit about Hallelujah Money before circling back to this one. Hallelujah Money is just bad. Of the 5 songs released so far, it's probably the worst, because it feels the least like a song. It's a clear protest song, and I know those are notoriously bad musically, but why? It seems to me that if you're so moved by a cause to write and produce a song about it, you'd take time to make it extra good because you care about it a little bit more. But no, we get shitty minimalist drum machines, ugly beats, and off-rhythm singing by featured Benjamin Clementine. Benjamin fucking Clementine and Gorillaz. This should have been one of the greatest protest songs of all time. Not sound like it was written in one take during a protest, then recorded and released an hour later. And just to present proof that I'm not just hating on the song because I'm a butthurt conservative, Arcade Fire did the same thing with We Give You Power. And I liked that song because it was a good song. I dare say I would have still liked the song even if I was a butthurt conservative. It's cheesy too, though, but it's the right amount of cheesy. We Have the Power leans a bit too heavily on camp to be as affecting as We Give You Power. It still sounds like a B-side, though kind of more so than any of the other 3 songs. Not only that, actually, it sounds like a B-side from a different band. It doesn't feel workshopped enough for the album, but it really wouldn't sound at home on G-sides or D-sides either. That's the main problem with these songs. Gorillaz aren't sounding like themselves, which really is a tremendous feat considering Gorillaz' whole shtick is never sticking to one sound. They've always been experimental, but these songs aren't experimental enough. They've always been political, but these songs are far too grandiose to actually affect someone's way of thinking. They almost feel smug. Like I said at the top of the video, anything they put out was guaranteed to be well received by the anticipating fans, and it almost feels like they knew it. These songs feel half-finished and clunky, like they were fine with just riding on their own coattails. Also, they aren't looking themselves. That's not Murdoch, that's John Lennon. What's up with these CGI nightmare-fueled pictures of the band? They're all so ugly, except, ironically, for Murdoch, who's supposed to be the ugly one. Wasn't that a running joke that he gets greener and more decrepit every album? I know they're just pictures, but Gorillaz is a virtual band. The image is pretty important. I know Jamie's tired of drawing these guys, so not every picture is going to be a masterpiece, but I have to bring it up because apparently this is going to be the cover. Why is this the cover? Every single Phase 4 image released so far would make a better cover. And haven't they already done this cover? On Demon Days? Remember? They did the 4 images, 4 corners cover, and it was one of the most popular, most parodied covers of all time, right up there with Abbey Road. This cover is just a shittier Demon Days cover. Wait. This whole album is gonna be shitty Demon Days, isn't it?